just thought it'd be great to have a catch up because
Yeah,
you're busy, I'm busy. I know that you're aiming for wrapping up soon, but
yeah.
you and I were always in prep mode. We were always in let's get this thing done mode, and
Yeah,
I'm sure you still are. Um, and
that is very much the mode. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
We've only got tomorrow, like basically 1 day left of the edit, so it's really coming together. It's almost finished. It's basically done.
So you're still editing today? I thought you were going to have another drop tomorrow, or you?
Today, tomorrow, and tomorrow we've got something so we can. So Friday will be the last day of editing, and then next week we have to start writing up a terrible report and analysis because there's no end of the painting. But the film itself is essentially finished, and it's great. It's really great. I love it. It's really great.
So I'm going to tap into that feeling that you say is great because I need to
Yeah.
now. I need to now unveil the reason why you think it's great. So, how about you tell? Because I hope it's okay for me to record and
Of
publish
course,
on
of
my
course.
YouTube because I want to share how genuine you are with the community, and I want to just explain. You can trust guys with a film and a camera because
Yeah,
they
some
go
of them.
about it the right way. So,
Yeah.
go ahead. Why don't you start right at the beginning? How did you hear about Flat Earth? How a bit about you and your background and why you got
Sure,
started in this.
sure. I'll try to be brief because I know a soundbite is better than an
Yeah.
endless story.
That's okay.
But I think I heard about Flat Earth a few years ago. I think when everyone started to hear about Flat Earth,
Okay.
when it started to get busier, and I started because it was making a big splash. I was looking for a film to get into to make with my colleague Josh
Yes.
at the same time that I was kind of getting into Flat Earth.
Okay.
And it was such a fascinating topic. And I had just finished doing a radio podcast on kind of animal communication. So this kind of idea of people and all the ways that people see with animals. But I got really into the idea of these groups that it's so easy to people make fun of. And in the media, it's so portrayed. And so many of them, I think, have really beautiful messages within them.
Yes.
That's kind of what really drew me to it. And then I met yourself and Charlotte, and that was really the first litmus test to see who are the people around me who I can actually connect with on this.
Fantastic. So go back another step, and you were studying, and you had an objective, had some coursework or something like that, and
Yeah, so I'm doing a master's degree right now in science media production. So it means that people like me who come from a sciencey kind of background, but want to leave the laboratory because we want to do talking, basically, because we love talking or storytelling. So one of the last aspect of it is to do a short film around 30, 45 minutes on really any topic, sciencey or not science. But that's not really the critical element.
understood. But obviously, Flat Earth has so many scientific aspects.
Yeah, I mean that's why the prime reason I loved getting into Flat Earth compared to anything else, and this defines Flat Earth to me compared to every other movement out there, is that
Okay.
Flat Earth is often very grounded in the language of science or an appreciation of the scientific method,
Okay.
and that is not something that you see across the board, and it really distinguishes amongst other things. But people, like for example, people who are into it could be some sort of a theory or something, but there's no way to engage with that if you're not part of the theory. It's either kind of binary, yes or no. Do you believe in this or not? But it's not really easy to connect that to the wider world. But because so much of the flat Earth arguments were based on scientism and scientific methods, that was a really amazing way. It meant that I could connect and communicate with the movement, and also link that to other scientists and kind of link the two. So that's really what I appreciated in the beginning.
Do you mind if I split a hair with what you just said? Because you said it involves scientism and science. Are you
When I
being
said science, the term it's
deliberate?
scientism,
Are you being deliberate?
I knew your face. No, that's a slip of the tongue. No,
So,
when I said-
but that's fine, because I hope you agree that flat Earth people identify the scientism and try and point it out.
I think probably the number one way that the term itself is from yourself and working with a part of your dialogue that's in the film. So, I mean, I stand Robin every your face and
Oh, poor you.
and your voice. I mean, at this point, I get you. So, yeah, and so the section that's in the final film where you taught is scientism. What are things that are just accepted as scientism? And that's not a fringe theory. That forms a lot of philosophy of science. Like, really mainstream philosophy of science is engaging with that idea that we often, for worse and for better, just if a scientist is an expert, they're an expert on anything. It's just that kind of the authority that they have, regardless of whether that knowledge is specific to the matter at hand.
Understood.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I've just watched a YouTube of Mahyu who's saying cosmology is 1 to the power of 120 out. So we're way off in our estimates of cosmology. which is a bit scary.
Well,
Okay.
I think, yeah, you have to love fear to be a cosmologist anyways. I mean, I think uncertainty is your bread and some.
Okay, so before we get to your vision and what you came to me with, was there a connection with the guys at the Flat Earth Conference and Imperial College?
Oh yeah, so there wasn't in the beginning actually. That kind of was roundabout.
Okay.
We were really looking at flat Earth. Josh, he might have had a connection beforehand, but myself totally separate. And when we started, we spoke with them for kind of research phone calls.
I see.
In the same way we spoke to some scientists and just sent some general emails. And we got a bit back from them, but the gents who were part of the conference, they weren't really the kind of people we were looking for as participants in the film.
Okay. So if I could put in inverted quotes your mission statement for this film, what would it be?
Yeah. From the beginning or how it ended up, because they're different things.
Tell me both.
The goal of the film before we began, Robin, before we had really met you and gotten your permission to join in, and before we met Kareem, we didn't know who was going to be in the film, and the film was just to really focus in on that idea of trust.
Okay.
And that's really an important thing because it crosses all levels. It's a huge issue in all of society, and it drives both the skepticism that drives flat Earth and also other people's skepticism of flat Earth.
I see.
Is this core idea, and it really ties into that idea where it doesn't matter. You can talk to any scientist or a flat earther, and most of the time they won't. The facts sometimes don't seem to jar with either of them. A lot of them, they just don't trust each other yet, and so that idea of that trust, that was the main goal.
Oh, okay. And now you've got to the wrap. What is your main reason why now?
That's a great idea when you don't have great people. But once we started working with yourself and with Dr. Kareem Malik, then the heart of the film is you two. And so trust is the theme, trust is the idea, and we're talking about this, but the heart is just seeing these two lovely men in their world and just kind of following them. So that's really the heart of the film comes from you guys.
Right, and then everyone and then everyone takes what they want from it because there's lots of bits and pieces.
I mean the film is, and I mean how much can you describe your own film? But it's quite moving. For me, the most beautiful part of the film is a part where we're with both Kareem kind of talking about trust or whatever, but also like with the group, the Bristol group, and with Charlotte in the pub, and there's just a beautiful sense of bonhomie, and it's really moving, and I think that for me encapsulates the film.
Wonderful.
There's no mockery of anyone. Everyone's taken very lovely, but also everyone is quite lovely in the film, which is the thing I really.
Nice.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, when you thought about your sort of what do you call it, storyboard, when you're thinking about the film?
And the kind of the original pitch, so kind of storyboarding and pitching and scene structure, yeah.
So you were going to sit alongside Kareem, Dr. Kareem, and sit alongside me. What was your line of questioning with Kareem, if you don't mind me asking?
So with Kareem, the thing is that we originally imagined that when people see this, their first instinct when they hear like, this is Robin and he's a flat earther, they're gonna be like, that guy's insane, right? The number one instinct of any of the general audience will probably be and with Kareem, they're gonna think, oh, this guy, he is the authority, and whatever he says, that's the one. And we knew that going in, so right from the beginning, we're kind of attacking that and trying to use it as we want. So our number one thing from the beginning is just be like always talk to both you and Kareem about the same topics and show how many of these opinions are always overlapping. Right. So many of the science and the flat earth opinions about science, about culture, there's a lot of overlap, and that's what we wanted to highlight. And just kind of getting the audience to a point where they are like, well, they're just that the two opinions are so, where they overlap is really what we focused on.
I see. So there's some
drive. Yeah, and to drive the audience to see the overlaps between the two, and there's contrast. And I don't think that any film could make or disprove someone of flat Earth, and that's certainly that wasn't the goal of our film.
No, that's fine.
It's just like, these are humans, and this is what these humans share, and these are the thoughts that they both have. That was what we were going.
What I always got from you, Nick, when you came to Bristol and talked to me twice, was once about the film and once just to get to know everyone, was just your integrity. I could always see that you just want to tell an honest story about humanity. So I hope you still get that across. I hope that's still.
It does. There's no one who's seen it through the drafts and there shouldn't be even a whiff of negativity in the whole thing. Really, I don't think there is. I think it's really just a nice story, which is what fantastic. I want. Yeah.
So give us an idea of what you plan to do with the rap. You know, when you've done it, what's your goal, and what do you plan to do?
With which? With the film, or
so you've got to submit it for a piece of coursework.
Yeah, so the film gets submitted.
Yeah.
And then we release it. This is a film. This is the nuts and bolts of filmmaking. Is that right away? It'll go on Vimeo immediately.
Right.
Because Vimeo is just a wide platform, and you can upload things. And however, there are sections of the film that we love that are really tied to music, and the licensing for a few tracks is a nightmare. Okay. So we as filmmakers have to decide, like, if we release it on YouTube, there's some licensing issues, and so the question is, what is the benefit behind it? Between YouTube's a huge platform compared to Vimeo, but anyone who's looking for it can find it. It's still available.
Yeah,
it's a circular thing.
See.
You know?
So you've got certain tracks which mean a lot, and you don't want to detach those tracks.
Yeah, and if it was, and it's a thing, and it comes from a bit of studentness, because if it's a production house thing, you would have wider access, and also you wouldn't have to be in that bind. You would just be, this is what it is. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how do amateur filmmakers, you know, get from where you are to like the big time? Because obviously, the more mainstream music you can pop into your film, the more widely it resonates with others.
Well, my personal answer for this, and I think professionals would skewer me alive for it, but typically when you're working on a scene, for example, I was working on a scene with you in it, I know, and I'm trying to come up with what I want to say, and something I know the music that I think will tell the scene. And in that moment, the music you're thinking of is something you already know, so therefore it's music that's, you know, verboten.
Yeah.
You put that under the scene, and then because you have it there, then you can then craft the scene around that. You can make this thing. Mm-hmm. Then the difficult part is later in the process, you have to then rip that out and replace it with something else. Yeah. And sometimes that's fine, and sometimes it's impossible. And in a way, we as student filmmakers have the luxury of saying, you know what, I'm going to keep this piece because this is a deeply integral piece that I don't know how to replace.
Okay, understood.
If it was a production house, then you'd have no choice. You would replace it with something inferior, and you'd be like, that's the deal. The film is worse, but that's the deal. That's what I have to do.
Okay. Can I be a complete nerd now and ask what software you use?
So it's different for everything. In my school, we are lashed to Adobe, so we use Premiere Pro for editing. I also do a lot of animation in the film, so we use the suite, which is like tied to it. You know, they make you pay a fortune because the workload. I animated one, and then I shifted over like Photoshop to After Effects to Audition to. So we use a wide range of all the Adobe products. So it works really well. But you got to pay them £500 a month, so there's a real, real.
Wow,
and when you come out of school, it's a real nightmare because you're like, you have to. It's the first investment you have to make. £500 a year, sorry, not a month.
I was going to say a month. That's $6,000.
No, sorry,
yeah.
£500.
Yeah.
Anyway,
well, 500 a year is still chunky, isn't it? Yeah.
Because it's something you don't actually get. You don't have it at the end, so it's a bit of a finicky thing. But it's just like paying the rent in media. You have to do it.
Yeah, there's no problem. So. Give us an idea of your skill sets between you and Josh. Is there a division of labour? Or?
It's a huge division, yeah, absolutely. I think there's a division of experience a little bit, and age. I'm much older than Josh, and so there's a difference with that. But the thing that Josh is invaluable is I can be really like, oh, Josh, I've got this brilliant idea. I want to do this thing, and it's terrible. And Josh is very good at saying, that's the worst idea I've ever heard. As well, Josh has a masterful control of his ego, which most of us don't.
Right.
And it's very easy to work with something with Josh and to not like something, and he has the to be like, that's fine. Okay, I agree with that. We can let it go. Whereas most of us, we make our little baby and then we love our baby no matter what happens. So.
Okay, so you said the film's going to be between 30 and 45 minutes, is that right?
It's 35 minutes is exactly how it... 35 minutes and 32 seconds is exactly... Yeah.
Okay, so now let's fast forward to the Vimeo launch, and let's say you get it on YouTube, then what? You've submitted it into college, and you've got bigger plans for it?
I mean, the primary function of this film will be... It'll be twofold, because as much as I'm quite proud of this film, actually. It's quite good, it's quite jazzy, it's really frantic, it's a very film that I feel is my kind of media.
Okay.
So it's good, and for the people involved in it, I mean, you'll be delighted, I think. I think people will be really happy that they partook in this film, and they look amazing, and it's really nice. From a wider perspective, is a 35 million student film what everyone wants? It's hard to know. So it's made like on video, shared as much as possible, use it as my portfolio. You know, it's a very good a stepping stone for me in whatever kind of jobs I'm applying for. And then Josh might want to look at some festivals as well. But We'll
Okay.
see. We'll see. That's a different. Oh God, I hadn't even thought about that.
Well, listen, if if it presents a reasonably honest portrayal of who we are, then I am sure it will get shared around the community, and I hope that's the
Yeah,
case.
I can only hope so. I think it's a dilemma that'll. I mean, it's everyone fares this. You know, you create something, you do your best to find your. You know, it's true to my morals, and I think it is a beautiful thing. And I don't. Yeah, it's not letting people down that I care about, like such as yourself and Charlotte and Ruben,
Yeah.
is a very important thing to me, and I'd be loath to have that to that trust kind of be, or to feel that it had been betrayed actually. So
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, the things I've seen so far have had a little bit of a twist and a dig, and a little bit of a, you know.
yeah, no dice, not interested in that really. I just think, and it comes to me too, is that like, so the piece I just did before this radio piece was about animal communication, and it went from scientists to people with guide dogs and all these beautiful stories, and included a group of people who were in humorous piece involved in like spiritual animal communication, and they are not. There's nothing funny about making fun of people that everyone's already making fun of, and that's if you're trying. I wanted to do a humorous piece, and the humor comes from the humanity of people, not from just like putting a silly song into them.
Yeah,
But
no,
I saw the piece that was it Artie, the other filmmaker who's on set with us.
Yeah, you saw that.
That seemed really ABC, didn't it?
I was
mean,
quite good with it. I mean, he had a very subtle way of saying there's a big contradiction here in what the world thinks. Here's a big picture of the space station, and then he finished up with a kind of satirical song about madness, and you know I could read the undertone in it, but however it was very authentic. He was trying.
It was. It seemed to me as if his title, I mean, the guide, it seemed like a really just like, here is Robin explaining to you, the curious audience, some tenets on.
Yeah, and that's I'm reasonably happy with it. I mean, it could have been so much worse, and all I can see is an undertone, or at least an artist trying to show the contradiction in what the worldview is versus what this guy's.
And it's tough. It's tough too because a lot of it, when it's us in the film, for example, like there's scenes, all of the scenes with that you're in, Robin, you know, that you're half of the film.
Yeah.
It's very anyone else like, oh, it comes across something, you'd be like, well, you know, that's not a good shot of me. I don't think I should look that way.
No, exactly.
Well, he shouldn't have used that. But from a general populace, I mean, I think it's just your family. Your family will know. They're the judge, I think. They're the ones who are like.
No worries. I agree with you. I think Artie did a reasonable job. I'm reasonably pleased with that. So
I have to tell you, Robin, it is the worst filmmaker's experience when I saw his film, and it's the same because some of them are the same shots as us. It's the same shot. But it's like, that's a crisp audio. Ooh, look at the grading. Oh, that's good color. And you're like, oh.
No, I had a fear that might happen. So listen. The fact you've taken so much time and effort into getting to know me and obviously Dr. Kareem. I need to tell you actually. We shared the same train home, as you know.
Oh yeah, I'm dying to know about that. Amazing. Yeah.
I wrote a whole write up on it on my YouTube channel. You have to listen because I had my iPad out and I was flicking through all my slides, and I showed him some of the contradictions, and I showed him the Lem lunar takeoff on video on my phone.
I love that. I love that footage. I only saw that footage because you sent it to us, or you told me about it, and it's like it's the best.
And I shared it with him, and bless him, he went really quiet, Nicholas. He went really quiet.
Yeah.
And I thought, you're really taking this in, aren't you? And as much as I think he didn't really feel prepared to answer all the slides, I do actually think that one went in. And just tonight, you know, I've launched a website, provetheglobe.com.
Yeah, but I can't find it. I've been Googling it, and I didn't. It's provetheglobe.com, right?
That's it.
Has it been up yet though?
Yeah, but for a month. Yeah.
Okay, because I only Googled it, and it's like, you know, it's not.
No worries.
Yeah.
No worries. So provetheglobe.com is live. Dr. Kareem's face to face was recorded as a Hall of Fame category, and my review is posted on there too. And I was with a scientist on Skype yesterday doing a walkthrough of some of the slides, and it turns out he's got very few objections to flat Earth. It's just one or two assumptions we make about the gravity in the atmosphere and the temperature going through the atmosphere. He thinks we might be able to get through because it's a smaller density of atmosphere, so it gets hotter slower, and we might get through with a bit of pace. and
Mhm.
I'm prepared to accept that might be right, but I'm not sure we went.
Yeah.
So I just want to tell you, thank you so much for setting up the whole Medway experiment, everything. Even though it was good fun, and you
A
got some
leftover
beef.
smoke grenade here. Yeah.
I think we need to. What was the absolute gold, Nick? Nicholas,
Yeah.
you must watch my review. You remember I did
Yeah. Yeah.
I did a little record of me and you in the car.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that's part of the review. And
Brilliant.
what is absolute gold is how you say, when I ask you what do you think about Effie Core's experiment versus the Discovery channels, and you talk about how it's so hard to set everything, expensive and difficult, and Effie Core seems to be accountable in all of those things. It shows how they've done it, why they've done it.
And they gave us tips. Like, I mean, they were really quick to send me advice. I mean, all the advice I have on how that experiment works comes from two members of the Flat Earth community, one of them being Effie Core, and staring at some screenshots. So that side is the one that gave me a lot of the advice I needed on how to try the experiment.
Oh, cool. And tell me, you went down to Speaker's Corner, didn't you?
I've been down three times now. I think I've gone down to see Flat Earth at Speaker's Corner. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Can you remember anyone you spoke to, or?
Yeah. The main. I get a bit shy at Speaker's Corner when it comes to the Flat Earth guys, because everyone's there. Like, I mean, Dave Murphy's there, and I think John, who came in, who was it who came to
Harry. John
Harry.
Smith Glowfly, Harry, yeah.
Yeah, Harry was there, and he's there, and JJ from who we speak to. So some of those guys are there, but I mean, like, so I see Dave Murphy, I really want to talk to him, but they're on, he's really working. He's working, and he's really, people's attentions are really, people are focused, and it's really intense, and I don't want to interrupt. Of course, Dave said, like, oh, you should have interrupted me, but, he's talking, he's there to do something, and I don't want to jump in. So, I mean, those guys are there, and I haven't been there at the times when there's dozens and dozens of people. I'm normally there just normally at the beginning.
I have to reference you one speech. It's a guy called Dave Mano.
Yeah.
And his channel is Trinity 4. He's South African, and he takes his shirt off because he's tanned, and he's a gardener, so he's got a great tan. And John Smith Global has done a video of him, a very stirring Scottish battle cry music as he does a speech at Speaker's Corner. It is absolutely awesome. I
love it, and I would like, you haven't asked, but I got to, but like Speaker's Corner, for anybody who's like, Flat Earth at Speaker's Corner is so sweet, and I just like my experience, and I was like, I'm not like, oh, here I am going to join my Flat Earth comrades. I'm like a outsider who wants to get to know people and is working on this film and to make contacts. So I think, so those are the kind of people I'd be addressing right now. But going to Speaker's Corner can be a very nasty thing.
Sure.
When you get there, there's all people. It's almost all men, and they're all yelling at each other, and people are screaming a lot of hate, and there's a lot of like religious hatred, and the air is kind of nasty. And then in the middle of this is this like calm, nice bubble of people saying the world is flat, and that is the most like sane thing at Speaker's Corner is the Flat Earth movement. So I was like, every time I went, I felt such a sense of like relief, because often I'd get there before and they weren't set up yet, and I'd be like, oh no, and you see the banners, I'm like, oh, whew. And people come over and have like nice talks. It was just very, and we saw that when I was at Your Activism, right? Generally people are really nice, really and interested in, and that's lovely. And so that's a really thing that I don't think people know about until you go. But Flat Earth at Speaker's Corner, the most normal thing happening.
Let me tell you, since we've done the August one, I've done 4 on my own in the park.
I know, yeah.
You've been watching. Oh, okay. And
I saw the first one. I saw quite a bit, and then the other one's just a bit.
So what I'm seeing is a real heavy representation of Flat Earth. People who are aware of Flat Earth. People who have a mate who's into it. Or just genuine skeptics. What are you on about? And then they try and attack. So that's good training for me. But what's surprising is laying your band down and inviting people over shows to me, doing a small census, I've got quite good representation here. I've got for every 10 people that walk past, I've got definitely one Flat Earth and maybe even 2. And I've got 1 or 2 that are looking into it, and 2 or 3 that have got friends.
I mean, it's not an accident or coincidence that you're having to queue up people who want to make films with you. It's a very zeitgeisty kind of moment where this community is exploding, and every time the mass media talks about this quirky movement, it seems that more people become involved in the movement rather than less.
Ah, interesting, isn't it? Because once you go flat, you can't go movement back.
That's what I heard. Yeah, no more flat Earth puns. I'm done. That's it. I'm out.
So, if you were to try and comment on the movement now, you've been aware of it for 3 years. Where do you see it going as an observer?
Interesting, man. That's a good point. All right. Okay. So from a personal level, and this is almost quoting you about face-to-face interaction, I feel that the community, everyone I met in the community, it was such a strong link, and everyone is so tied to each other, and there's a lot of reasons for that. Some of them are just from feeling that you're not alone and that you have other people you can connect with, and other people it's just friendship and shared interest. But so that will continue, and you're the one who said that before. But YouTube, their censoring protocol is not a small thing. This is like, in my opinion, it's a big deal. Because 3 months ago, when I wanted to find about a flat Earth, if I typed in flat Earth anything, that was all the stuff, and there'd be one article from BuzzFeed or something. Now it seems to me that I have to go like 3 pages deep to get content from members of the community. And in my opinion, I think that's going to be an issue, I would imagine.
Okay, I appreciate that. I think we all acknowledge that. So, when people in your social circles who don't know too much about flat Earth ask you what you're doing, when you start to mention it, what's their reaction?
It's weird. I wonder if I hear what I want to hear, because I often expect, first of all, the last thing I expect to hear is shock. I'd say 1 out of 10 are like, what? Which I think was the case 4 years ago, right? I mean, that is like, it's like talking about a mythical thing back then. And now people are like, oh yeah, the flat Earth community, I've heard about them.
Good.
So I think that very few people are completely in the dark about it. And then I wonder. I'd say that generally, especially the science people are like, oh, of course it's rubbish. But I think it's just something about it. And maybe this is the reason at Speaker's Corner, people are so curious about it. It's such an audacious statement to make.
Yes.
That unlike, this is the thing, if you want to say that everyone is a lizard, and no offense to people who are into this conspiracy theory, but when you say that everyone is a lizard, you don't have any way to connect with people. There's no backing up. You're losing this scientific thing. It seems impenetrable for those walking past. I can't walk past and a guy says everyone's a lizard, and I'm like, well, I don't know anything about that. But if I walk past and a guy is like, here are all the things you see, and look, I took this picture of the thing you saw, but I see it differently than you. I mean, people can get into that. That's why I think that in general in my life, I think that the reaction to flat Earth is not one of just like super like, ugh. It's really just like, it's always a little bit curious. Always, every time.
Fantastic. Well, the 2 guys I interviewed last in the park, I asked them to use an aeroplane, a model one that I gave them, and I said, can you pretend you're flying from London to New Zealand? And the guy does it, and he goes underneath, and they both laugh, because they both said, oh, that's crazy. When you think about it, that's really crazy. So, yeah, I think you're right. The curiosity now is quite natural. I think people do look for, what is this thing then? I'm not going to mock it, I'm going to look.
I'd say, as an outsider, I think it's a challenge. So, assuming that the movement keeps growing and growing, right? Imagine more and more. I think it is a challenge, though, for a lot of the flat Earth arguments to tighten up and maybe raise their game a little bit. And I know that this is for someone who's generally... Okay, maybe that's not fair, actually, because I'm so ignorant on this stuff that even though I know it, I'm not an expert on the argument. So maybe I'm being an idiot. But
what do you mean by raise your game, then? How so?
The more people get into flat Earth, the more it's starting to gather. You would imagine it would gather in very mainstream people and people who are quite science literate.
Yes. And
so some of the proofs they're not that they for those science literate, they seem quite flimsy. Other ones seem really interesting and really thought provoking. But it seems like, how do you as a movement start to attract more and more people? Then it seems like also maybe the things that were okay that passed the bar before, that they should be kind of raised.
Okay. Do you want to tell me which? Do you want to tell me which ones are your most interesting?
I didn't want to go down this rabbit hole.
You don't have to. You don't have to. Which ones that strike you as being the most compelling?
The number one argument that when I hear it, I think, come on, is the one about planes flying upside down, because it seems to do a disvalue to those. It's that flat Earth community, because it fundamentally shows a misunderstanding of the theory of gravity. So. Right. Or of the globalist theory. So it's not like, oh, you don't understand the facts. It's that if you're going to attack a globalist theory, that you really want to be like, I understand what they're saying so that I can attack it.
Okay, so maybe the best preface is to say, I know that gravity is supposed to do this, and when we have a gyroscope, it's supposed to do this. But here's what we're finding is contradictory.
It's not saying oh, this is why it's wrong. It's like, this is the globe theory and I know what it is and I'm going to attack it correctly. But in the same way, it's the same way that flat Earth has to deal with. If globalists say, oh, flat earthers think that we're going to fall off the edge and there's dragons underneath. The flat Earth response is to say, you don't understand my arguments, right?
Okay.
And it's the same way when somebody says, I'm upside down, and a globalist will say, like, you don't understand the argument of how the...
I understand, okay.
So I think it's just that. I think
it's
that those...
Yeah,
I think there's some point... And so, yeah, that's my
good.
thing.
That's good. No, I think I will preface, and it sounds like I'm being defensive now, but I will preface with these two guys. I said, in order for me to believe that 70% of the world's surface is water is bendy, I have to accept that water defeats its own natural properties, and trillions of tons of water can be held to the underside of a ball, and I'm struggling with that. So maybe that's not a strong enough preface, but yeah.
I guess it's like, okay, let's go pedantic. Let's do it.
Yeah,
the problem is that a globalist would say that if I were to make a snowball and give it to you and say this is a globe, which side is up? And the thing is that there is no up, because it's a snowball, right? You can rotate it and any side gets to be up, which means that if you put a dot on the snowball, everybody gets to say they're up, which means nobody's up. So there is no underside of the snowball, every side is the side. So that argument, that's the one argument where the globalists would never say there's an underside. Everyone's like, everything's on it, so everything
Understood.
gets...
Yeah.
And the thing with that is that there are so many really fun, wonderful questions in Flat Earth that you go, like today, I spent forever today reading some random old science papers about the newtons generated by a moth when it flaps its wings. And that was in reply to Flat Earth questions that I think are really great questions. Okay. But the one about the underside of the ball is the one where I go like, it's not a globalist thing. They're not saying that, though.
Okay, well, thank you for your feedback, Nicholas, because I need to know if there's something that jars with the other side so much that it's just thread.
That's the one. It's the one with that, like the underside and planes upside down, because those are not. No globalist is going to be like, they're like, nah. But
well, interesting. I will say these two guys laughed and they realised the absurdity of it. So some people do, some people don't. I'll take it on board.
Absolutely. And I've seen, if I can compliment you on your show, it's like I've seen you do activism, and it's amazing, Robin. And like before that, I'd seen you as an organizer, as someone running community groups, as a person I was hanging out with, and all of those are like, oh, really great guy. But then when you're doing your activism, like, oh, this is like your skill. This is like the man is working. You're so good at it.
Thanks, mate.
So nice. It's really, really, really amazing, mate. 5-star. Really impressive.
Thank you, Nicholas. I appreciate that. So I'm going to try and wrap up now. And if I was to see, what would make you smile with this film in the output and the result? What's going to make you a happy filmmaker?
The number, actually, I know this thing because I think about the motivation. The number one thing I want, actually, Robin, is that you like it, and that's a terribly shallow thing to say. No, it's true. It's true, because this is if you like it, and other than for reasons I can control. If you don't like it because I used a bad shot of you, that's not my problem. But basically, what I mean is that I want the people who are in it from the Flat Earth community to see the film and to be like, oh, that is like a fair or a nice presentation or portrayal of them, because that means to me that the film has heart and that it's being true to itself, and I've like tried to do what I want to do. So
awesome.
And
just tell me how you feel about Dr. Karim, his involvement, and the aftermath. How did he cope with the day with me? And maybe
it's interesting actually, and I don't want to speak for Dr. Karim.
No.
Karim's amazing in the same way that you both your participation, like so giving of your time, and and like both of you, like you traveled all the way from Bristol, and he runs a bloody department that he took time off from. So there's like so much generosity from both of you. And I think on the final day, there was a sense when we were filming that Karim was like, whoa, like there's so much more to this than I think he expected. That is for sure. But
if you watch my review, that's how I review it. I say, if I was being cruel, I would say he looked really unprepared. But if I was being kind, I would say he maybe had no idea how much information a general flat earther has in his head.
That's true. That's true.
And wants to ask a scientist. You know, it's a big moment for a flat earther.
Yeah, it was. That's a pretty adorable. It was pretty adorable, Robin. You were really excited. But I think the thing too is that, and there's that moment film, but like, and also like so. But as a filmmaker, my motivations in that moment are not the same as you and Kareem, right?
Yeah.
You guys are like fired up to have this conversation with a scientist, which is great. I want to facilitate that. But what I want, and what comes a lot in the film too, is that these are these two characters we've been following who seem so opposite, right? You have like Buzz, and by the end, you've just got this like wonderful thing where they're all mixed up and everyone's talking and arguing about flat Earth, and that's what I want. This idea that it's a conversation that's worth having. I think
awesome. Well, thank you. Well, I wish I had a camera running on the train going back into London, because that was just great. Well, maybe I will just pop him an email and say, fancy a drink.
For sure. So, Robin, we'll have the final cut of the film should be in by the end of the week.
Okay.
Which means I'll get a cut to you as soon as it's off the thing.
Awesome. And I want you to pass my regards to Josh. And
sure.
When you're around in London, we'll hook. October, November, we'll hook up and we'll have a coffee or a beer.
Anytime. Hopefully, and anytime, Robin. I owe you a lot. I owe you more than just a short Skype talk. I owe you several months of train travel. So thank you so much.
Don't be silly, and you take care of yourself, Nicholas. It's a pleasure speaking to you.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Robin.
All the best. Take care. Bye.